What does purpose mean to you? This is the Alchemy of Alignment. I'm your host, Suzy Sanders, and today we're exploring another relationship with purpose and how that plays out in business. And I'm delighted to have a treasured guest here with me today, Dipti Solanki, who I've known for many years, and her work has evolved over the years. And I'm really, really excited that she's agreed to be here with us today, because over the years, I've learned business is about understanding people. And Dipti's work is about grief, which is a complex and challenging condition and situation that affects every single human being. So I'm really, really excited that Dipti's agreed to talk to me today, hopefully to share some insights from her remarkable entrepreneurial journey, as well as some collective insights around the work that she does, educating others and supporting others with their grief. So Dipti, welcome. Thank you for being here with me today.
Hello, Suzy. It's really, really lovely to be here and so good to see you.
Fantastic. So I've kind of alluded a little bit into the work that you do, but please, in your words, share a little bit more about the impact that you have through your work.
As you say, my name's Dipti Solanki and I go under the label of grief coach, but we're more than those labels, right? So my work, as you say, centres a lot around grief. My journey through all of that has meant that I help people with their mental health through understanding all the different types of loss that we can experience, because grief is about more than bereavement. It's about working with companies, it's about working with people on a one-to-one level, and it's really helping people understand that grief is a really normal and natural response to any type of loss that we experience, but we have to be active in our grief, and we have to participate in that grief journey ourselves so that we can come through it. It's possible to grow through our grief, and it's possible to kind of move through that so that we can stay healthy and whole through it as well.
Amazing. And that it's an emotive topic. And I've been following you on LinkedIn for years, not in a weird way, honestly. But seeing the work that you're doing, particularly with organizations as well, and supporting them, educating them to look after their people, it's really poignant. So before we go off on multiple tangents, as our regular listeners will know that I like to do, Dipti, what does purpose mean to you?
Purpose to me is a lot of different things, but I think the first thing when I think of purpose is a feeling. Purpose is a feeling of, this feels in alignment. This feels like this should be my next thing. This feels like I'm in the right space. And purpose is, for me, I wake up every morning, and this is what my darling dad taught me, is that I wake up every morning and I ask God, my goddess, and I say, like, where can I be most useful today? Right? And the feeling that I get, and that can be lots of different things. It might be that my purpose that day is to spend the day with my children, like doing what they need me to do, or it may be that someone else may need my help, or it may be that I need that something. So purpose is really, if we're living in the present moment, if our heart is healed, then we're able to listen to those cues that come from within. And that to me is purpose, following your gut instinct and going where you're needed in that moment, because it changes all the time, right?
Yeah. Oh, Dipti, you explained that so eloquently. I mean, purpose is a feeling. Absolutely. I agree with you. I'm all about the feels, but I've noticed this in my interactions recently, but equally in these conversations, in these episodes that we've had, there is this sense of purpose being this big thing that we have to have figured out, and that we arrive and it's like, oh, I'm living a purposeful. It's like, well, it doesn't work that way. Would you agree? Because there is always something needing our attention. There is always something external. There's so much internal. And I think what I'm hearing from you is that connection to self and knowing who you are and what you need. And that question of how can I be useful today? Like, that's just beautiful. And purpose evolves. Life evolves.
100%. Yeah.
everything moves, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you, thinking about your journey as a business owner, as a coach, as an entrepreneur, what are some of the challenges you faced with purpose and with that question that you ask?
So before we came on air, and I'm going to share this with our listeners as well. So I woke up this morning and my husband leaves the house super early to go to work, and he messaged me and I said, "Are you okay?" And I went, "I'm tired." And he said to me, "Don't worry, darling, nearly there." And then his next message to me was, "But I don't know where there is, but we're nearly there." Okay. And that's the point of what you've just shared, right? Is that when does that point arrive where we feel like we've made it and we've achieved our purpose? And I do so much work with people at the end of life as well. So I'm a qualified soul midwife as well. And one of the regrets that people who are at the end of life, one of the main regrets is, I didn't spend enough time doing what I wanted to do, that things that really brought me joy, and spent time with the people that I loved, right? So our purpose can be anything, and it's not this big thing where suddenly we've made it, because I know that we now live in a world where external achievement is really valued. This is my label, this is my award, this is what other people think of me. But what do you think of you? Can you be with yourself and go, like, I love you so much, and like you're really showing up in the world that make you feel proud of you?
Wow. Yeah, and that fit. I mean, I got goosebumps hearing you say that. Like the a very common regret that people carry or have or feel, and you're absolutely right. And particularly in business, particularly with everyone's polished highlights on social media, it's so easy to just constantly seek that success, that validation. It's so easy and so common, but it's how do you define that yourself? And I know I've struggled with that. And I know, I'm going to call it self belief, but over the years building my business, like most small businesses, my businesses exist to serve others, to support others, to make a difference in people's lives. But actually, what difference does your business make to your life as well? And that's something that I think is what you're saying, in the sense of like, how do you feel about yourself and how are you defining success? Have you felt challenges in that area, or is that something that kind of comes a little bit more natural to you?
Oh my gosh, no. Like, entrepreneurship is like a whole beast in itself, right? Okay. And there are so many days where I sit there and go, what am I thinking? Like, why am I doing this? Because it's hard, because you don't have that boss that's saying, right, this is the project that I want you to work on, and there's this tidy little thing that you have to sort out, and someone else is going to take care of all these other things. And not only are you doing all the things like the marketing, the finance bit, the all the other things that go on with it, like you're having to come up with the creative and the idea and the purpose and the all of that stuff. So it's hard. It's hard. And I'm gonna be lying if I say that in some way, shape, or form that I don't face some of those challenges on a daily basis. Like, it's hard. But the times where I feel like, okay, maybe I should just go and get a job. And I think most of us think that on a weekly basis, like maybe I should just go and get a job. And then the times that I've done that, or I'm doing an assignment that doesn't feel right, I get that sense of, but is this it? And for me, I know that's my cue of like, is this it? If I can't see the deeper meaning in something, if I don't feel that spark of passion, like I'm such a rebel, I just can't do it. I just can't do it. And like most entrepreneurs, I'm guessing, I'm very multi-passionate. And we're so lucky, right, in these entrepreneurial journeys. Like, you see me, I'll be doing a bit of this, I'll be doing a bit of that, but there's a common thread there. And the common thread is life, it's death, it's grief, it's how do we live with purpose? How do we live with meaning? How do we die with meaning and purpose as well? And that to me is the real stuff. for someone else it might not be. They might just, a lot of people look at me and they say to me, oh my goodness me, how do you do that? But it just gives me so much meaning in my life. It lights up my soul. And that's what I mean about that feeling.
Oh, absolutely. And firstly, can I just recognize your courage and your openness there, because it is hard, and it's really interesting. As you said, on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, sometimes I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And I think, if I've said it before, and I said it recently, I was speaking at the virtual assistant conference, and I started my session by asking those who have considered giving up on their business, even if it's a fleeting moment, or even if it was a rut or whatever, if you have had the thought of giving up, I asked the room to stand with me. And I'm going to say, if we are all being honest with ourselves, every single person has felt like giving up at one point on their business, because it is hard.
It is.
So it's really affirming to hear you say that. And one of the things that popped up for me there is like, purpose is also, which links to what you were saying earlier about that kind of that internal work. Purpose is so subjective and so personal. Like, no one can tell you what your purpose is, right? I mean, I do look at you, Dipti, and I think I'm in awe of your work. I am also in confusion as to how you handle all of that. Like, emotionally,
so am I.
and I would like to pop the phrase in here, like, you can only meet others as deeply as you've met yourself. And I'm in awe of your work in that sense, of the depths and the places that you meet people and you hold the space for them. That is remarkable. And I've lost my point.
But because we're both going to go in a minute.
But it was about that kind of like purpose. It's an internal journey, isn't it? It's not a tick box exercise. It's not an external, someone tell you the point. Like, when you are in business, you are in the driving seat and purpose is the journey. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%, 100%. Yeah, I agree with all of what you said. Because I think the thing that people really have to remember, and I think that social media is fantastic, but it's such a culprit for so many things as well, is that as long as you can live with yourself, and as long as something feels right to you, and you might be happy making balloon-shaped animals, and that gives you purpose because you see the smiles on people's faces when you do that, right? But I think the common thread with purpose in anybody that we choose to have that conversation with is that, yes, what it gives to you, but what it gives to others as well. And it's about connection.
Yeah.
It's about deep human connection, right? And that connection can happen in any way. Because we're not meant to be solitary beings.
You're so right. You're so right. And I'm interested in this. My mind's just like, my cogs are whirring now. I'm just thinking, like, I'm interested in your take on this, because the advancements of technology, AI, like how fast AI is progressing in terms of capability and speed and what can be done. And social media, I remember growing up. I'm so thankful I grew up without social media.
Me too.
We're the last generation. We are the last generation that has that. So I'm curious your take on thinking about that deep human connection, because, as I said earlier, like, business is about understanding people, and it is about connection, regardless what you're doing, who you're doing it with. We're all human beings. So with technology and with that drive for human connection, like, how do you see the future?
The future for me, when I think about how it could look and what I'm seeing in practice, and especially in young people, but also older people, like, it kind of makes me feel a bit sad. And I feel that there's a lot of work to be done in gaining balance. And I think that's the thing, because I think it's no good and it's ignorant of us to kind of go, yeah, social media is this and it's that, but we rely on it for our businesses, right? And for some people, we rely on it for connection as well. But it's the kind of connection that happens. It gives us connection to an extent, but it's the kind of connection that's happening. And, one of the things I didn't mention is that I'm also partway through my counselling training now as well. And I'm on placement within the NHS. And some of the young people that I get the joy to work with, like, it makes me sad. It makes me really sad because they are caught up in this, I want to say fake world, but that's now their real world. And they don't understand that life exists beyond social media. And there's a way of connecting with people that doesn't rely on this stuff that's real, that's honest, that's raw, that teaches you about yourself. And that makes me sad. And I think that every single one of us has a responsibility to bring balance to that.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I'm wildly hopeful that I feel like, social media came out and everyone was like, ooh, got involved. And I really like your use of the word balance there is beautiful, because I really hope I'm wildly ambitious that my children are younger than yours, Dipti, but I'm really hoping that as they grow, they will reject social media because that deep drive, that need for human connection, that's not going to go away. That's how we as a species are built, right? So I'm really hoping that younger generations, as they find that balance, they'll start rejecting some of the intensities that social media and that technology bring. But that's my take.
Yeah, but I also think, like, as parents, we have another responsibility. We have so many responsibilities, but I think there's a responsibility within the home environment, whether it's parents, guardians, families, aunts, whoever it is. We have if we are able to foster deep connection in those relationships within the home, and when we meet people in person, it gives these young people something to compare it to.
Yeah.
And that comes to knowing yourself, so that we can connect with people on a deeper level, not just, hi, how are you? How are you doing? What are you doing? What label are you going under right now? Is that good enough? How big is your car? How big is your house? How big is your bank balance? Let's go beyond that into the deeper connections. So people know how that feels, and they're like, oh, we're reminding ourselves of how it's supposed to feel to be with other human beings.
Yeah. Oh. And you mentioned like a discomfort, because I know sometimes people aren't comfortable even recognizing their emotions, or let alone dealing with them, right? Is that a fair statement?
Very fair statement.
Okay. I mean, I said that cautiously because I am super emotional, and I have always grown to view that as a negative thing.
Right.
But actually, since starting Alchemy Virtual Assistants, I've realized that actually my ability and depth to feel is absolutely a strength, because that allows me to connect with others and understand others. And, as a human being, as a business owner, all I ever want to do is understand and be understood. And but throughout the years, particularly with my coaching practice and within business, like, I've seen people that are just like so disconnected, and I'm not saying this in a judgmental way at all. It was just an observation how disconnected some people can be from their emotions. And I'm interested in your take on that as a business owner in your own right, but equally through the work you do. Like, is there a general, again, I don't like to put people in boxes, but is there a disconnect with emotion? What's the resistance there?
So I think even if we kind of go back even further than the resistance, it's the conditioning that we receive in our formative years. It's how because we learn through watching and hearing and sensing, right? So if you have adults around you, whether they're teachers, caregivers, whoever they are, if they are pretending that everything's fine the whole time, if they're putting on a mask, probably through trying to protect you, they're not giving you the realities of life, they're not having those deeper conversations, they're encouraging you to be strong, you've just got to push through it. These are the messages we're getting. essentially, if we feel deeply, like I suspect you and I both do, then you're going to feel that you're wrong in some way. And so even if we are emotional and we understand deep sensitivity, we're going to try and mask that, because all of a sudden that's a personality flaw. So most people, if they feel emotion, they feel that there's something wrong with them, that they have a mental health issue, that they're feeling overwhelmed. But no, this is what being human is about. This is one of the incredible things about being human, that we have all these nuanced emotions, and these emotions are signals our body gives us of you're on the right track, or you need to stop, or you need to redivert, or, fall deeper in love, step the hell away, like whatever it is. But we are taught not to listen to our hearts, and we're taught to think with our heads, and we all know the things that our heads can do. So we live in a very head-led society now, but we need to follow our hearts a bit more.
Yeah, I love that, Dipti, and I couldn't agree more. And I remember one of our franchise partners very early on in her journey. I remember saying to her, like, "What's your gut say?" She'd come to me with a challenge, and I was like, well, "What does your gut say?" And she looked at me like, "What? What do you mean?" Having spent years in corporate, where it's again, her experience was very head based. I was like, "Well, what's your gut say?" And she was like, "Oh, okay," and that opened up a whole other conversation. And I think again, this just comes back to what you were saying earlier about kind of that knowing yourself and knowing that those emotions, those feelings are showing you something. I mean, that's a huge asset to any entrepreneur, having that ability, right?
Yeah, your gut is your internal navigation system. It's your GPS. Like, we ignore it at our peril.
Mm.
And we've all experienced it, but
Yeah.
some of us just don't learn.
Oh, well, I mean, for me, the best way to learn is to get it wrong.
Yeah, exactly. But,
Feel that
I think
pain.
as we get older, there's a deeper wisdom, because we understand our bodies and the function of our bodies. And, once we really start to listen to our gut, it's scary actually listening to your gut, because normally it goes against everything that we're taught, that we've learned, that everyone else thinks we should do. But when we go with our gut, it's like a warrior move, that one. And when we do, like, really magical stuff happens.
Yeah, I like to think of it like a muscle as well. Like I think of my gut feels as like my bit. I call it my business brain, and it's like any muscle, it needs strengthening. But the more you do it, the easier and more natural it becomes, right? But I love that warrior move. What I don't know if this is the right question to ask, but what's been your ultimate warrior move, Dipti, over the years? Or just one that springs to mind?
Do you know what I'll tell you the first thing that came into my heart when you said that. It's learning to live with the grief and dealing with the death of my dad. That's been my biggest warrior move.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know where that came from, but yeah, that's been my warrior move. That, yeah, because
Thank
that
you.
was the thing I was always so afraid of.
Yeah.
And honestly, I never thought I'd survive another day, the day that he died. And I'm proud of the way that I dealt with that.
Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that, Dipti. And that warrior move has fueled your journey as well so much in so many ways. And now you're able to support others in that really, really hard time. I mean, the hardest of times, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, like, as you know, I lost my mum when I was 13. I was really young, and I didn't grieve, and that's kind of what led me on this journey, learning about grief, having an emotional breakdown and going, oh my gosh, like, we need to think about this, we need to know about this. But Dad died during the pandemic of COVID, like the height of it. And I think most of us have that fear of what's going to happen when I lose mum and dad. And that was my biggest fear. I pride myself, I'm scared, but I'm not scared of much. But that was the thing that absolutely frightened me. But when I did lose dad, yeah, it was an honor to go on that journey. It was a journey that turned my whole world upside down. It was a journey that I don't think I'll ever be the person I was before. But yeah, and I think it's led to a lot of positive things. It was his spirit that kind of lended it to mine and said, right, you've got a lot to do in the world, like you can't stop. So yeah, and I've opened the CIC in his legacy because I really want, like I need more help, more support, more business in the CIC so that I can provide grief and more accessible grief support to people. Because often people know that they need the support, but they can't afford the support. So we're working on that. And also, like, because of him, we ended up making a documentary with the BBC. I wrote my grief journal. That's on Amazon. Something more to say. There's so much more to say. So yeah, I think that's been my warrior move. And Dad always taught me to be brave. That was
Oh,
that was the last promise he made me make him, that I was going to be brave.
oh, Dipti, thank you so much for sharing that with. I feel a bit emotional just hearing that. Thank you, and what a gift, and what a joy, and what a brave, courageous soul you are. And can we have a moment just to explore the CIC a little bit more? Because
Yeah.
about this topic of accessibility, I firmly believe everyone can benefit from coaching, if I'm using it as a broad term, but it's not always something that everyone has access to, whether it be in a corporate environment, in their personal lives. So I think this is touching on making your work more widely accessible to the people who really need it. And is that what the CICs come about to do?
Yeah, 100%. So I think when Dad died, I knew that I needed support, but I've really struggled finding the right kind of support, and I just wanted to. It sounds terribly egotistical, but I needed a replica of me who could understand where I was coming from and understand grief from the different nuances and the depths and my approach as well. So I was like, what am I going to do about this? Like, this needs to exist in the world. So that's why the CIC came about. And so I the first thing that people need to know when they come for support is that grief is not just about bereavement. It's about so many different types of losses, that we all come from different backgrounds. We all have, so some people have neurodivergence, some people have cultural things that they need their counsellors or their coaches to understand. And that's what we're working on with the CIC. So yeah, so it's really important that that exists, because that doesn't exist, not out there yet, and we need that, and people need that accessible support. We're human, we need support. We shouldn't have to go on these journeys alone.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will, of course, put some links for anyone that wants to check out and support your work or explore what you're doing more, and your beautiful journal as well. So we'll pop those links in. Oh, I knew I was going to love speaking to you today. My gosh, I feel like I've filled the feels. We've been on a journey in itself in this short little episode. And I really do want to thank you again for your openness, your courage, and everything that you've shared today. And if I'm to kind of close down this episode just by recapping on what purpose means to you, I mean, gosh, we've gone around today, right?
Yeah, we have. I've loved our conversation. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, and I can't believe this is work. We were saying this earlier, weren't we? But I am immensely grateful to you for listening and being here, and Dipti for you sharing your journey with us so freely. And to close down this episode, if you had one parting comment or thought or idea to plant in our wonderful listeners' ears and hearts, what would that be, Dipti?
Let's lean on Osho for this. It's let's get out of our heads and into our hearts.
Oh, perfect. Dipti, thank you so much for being here with me today. And thank you to you for listening, watching. Please let us know what landed in your heart from today's episode. I've been Suzy Sanders, and I will catch up with you again soon.